do your deal, and I'll introduce myself, and we'll go from there.
Hey everyone, this is Prophet Ralph. You know it's all love. Don't listen to how I say, but what I say. And it's all good. You get you a lot of wisdom. I'm excited about tonight and today's topic. I wish you all a happy ride tonight because I believe it's gonna be real good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Sharp. I've had the pleasure of being on Pop several times, and this is my third or fourth time at this. So I always enjoy being with you all and sharing. I believe tonight's going to be maybe a little bit of an impromptu conversation. I know Prophet Ralph had some things that he wanted to share in terms of tips and ways that as we're ending relationships, how do we continue to keep a great, healthy friendship? And that's actually something I specialize in. So I'm really glad that you wanted to have this conversation. But how do we go from, and here's what we have to understand with relationships. They're for very grown people. And I always say that relationships are for very grown people because you have to be prepared for if it doesn't work. What does that look like when what does it look like when it's over? How do you conduct yourself? How do you continue on? How do you still be respectful, even if something went bad? So I always say relationships are for really grown people. Prophet Ralph, do you want to jump in and share maybe some ways that you have been able to maintain after, and that's the interesting thing about love. That's why I say build relationships on something more than love, because love is a feeling. And once love is gone, how are you going to treat another person? So maybe you can tell us, Ralph, from your experience, how you've been able to, navigate keeping a healthy relationship after a bad breakup or even a good breakup, if that's a thing.
Well, those that know my story know that I was engaged to a beautiful woman, God-fearing woman. However, it didn't work out, so we called off engagement. But we remain great friends to this day, and it's been almost a year now. But the thing about it is, in relationships, sometimes you can establish a friendship, and sometimes you can't. There are things that happen in relationships where it's not toxic. People can still come to the table and talk about it, and although they decide they're not good together, they may be good friends. So just because a person, I say this all the time, just because a person is a good man or a woman, don't mean that person is good for you. And it's about finding that person. But when you get into a relationship and it don't work out, I think that friendship still can be set in place if it's not toxic. And I think it's
Right.
important that it should be set in place if it's not toxic. So especially if the relationship was good, you learned a lot from each other. You're great friends, being able to be transparent and feel comfortable with sharing things with each other, then I think that is a must that you remain in friendships because that person is vital in your life. And going forward, you got to know that hey, this person is going to add from my life or take away. And those that you say take away, you got to put off in that to the side to say, hey, that person is not a person that I'm willing to move forward with as a friend after the aftermath of the disaster.
Wow, after the aftermath of the disaster, that's good. That's really good stuff.
Mhm.
I agree. I think that, we all go into a relationship hoping for the best, wanting the best, wanting a good outcome, wanting to build. I've just found in this space of dating, for me, it's important to keep friendships. And so I always go into it with the expectation that let's be friends first. Let's just see, what this is like in building a friendship. And if it moves into something else, that's great. If it doesn't, that's great as well. So in that space, I think I'm always able to navigate the space of even when things are not going the way either one of us desires. I just did a relationship bootcamp masterclass, and we talked about healthy relationships. And one of the first things that we talked about under healthy relationships is making sure the pace of the relationship goes well for both of you. So it's not a thing where, one of you are feeling good about it and the other is like, I don't really like the flow of this, but that you both have come together, had communication, and you both decided that we both like the way the flow is going. And so I think when we start out with that good communication, we start out being clear about what we want. We start out understanding we're building a friendship first. I believe that when you do exit it, that it just makes it easier to where you don't feel like you have to be at odds or, there has to be any bad blood. I have to hate you. You got to now be the bad ex. How some people have jokes about, those bad ex, or, you don't have to do all that, because at some point you loved him. At some point you liked him. At some point you cared about him enough to have you in your space. So in my mind, a lot of times that says a lot about us as well in terms of who we choose. Um, so I do think it's important that, we're able to end things and be peaceable about it, be kind about it, and still maintain the friendship. Because sometimes I've known plenty of people who, they took some time away and they realized, I really think I want this person in my life. So sometimes it's always good to keep those places open just in case there's another chance. So I'm going to ask you, Prophet Ralph, do you feel like there's an open door with you and your ex still, or is it kind of one of those things where y'all decided to move on?
Well, it's always an open door with me when it's not toxic. Now
Yeah.
the relationship that I've been in that has been toxic, no, I'm not going back to that. Like, I believe that's like a dog going back to his vomit. He's too busy moving forward. But the relationship not toxic, which it wasn't. We were great friends. I think that at that point, and even now, still going forward, you got to learn how to love yourself, and that's why I look at, and just to kind of go to the side of the Will and Jada situation, how she mentioned that she had to learn to love self, and sometimes in relationships, you got to learn to love yourself and be able to know who you are in before you get involved with someone else and bringing that person in life. So I think that when it comes to me and her, it wasn't our season. I think I tried to force it. And when I just like, hey, I'm rolling with the tides, if it's like this, then cool, let it be like that, But I genuinely love you, not so much as an intimate love, but just unconditional love. And it doesn't matter who I'm with, how how fast we grow or anything or where we going. This person gonna always be a part of my life based on the relationship that I have with her mom, her son, her grandmother, her grandfather. And it's just because I'm a good person. I'm not gonna bash a person regardless if they were wrong or right. But I'm just the type of person that I leave a door open for that, because you never know what God has for you. And if you close that door, then you miss your blessing. Similar to the children of Israel. He let stuff die, and hey, even at 100 years old, you can still find happiness. But hey, I want to enjoy my heaven on earth while I'm still young and look good.
Absolutely. I totally understand that. And that's good stuff. I mean, because like you said, you just never know the opportunities and what God has in store for you. And I think that's key. I think that we're in a season where God is really wanting to remind us of the purpose of why he created relationships. And remind us of the value that it adds to us as human beings. It is like, in my opinion, I believe God's heart is, for him to make all he made and look at it and say, in that moment, it was good. And then gave Adam an assignment. But somewhere in that point, he recognized he needs something else. It's not good for him to be. Everything was good until that moment. And that moment, God recognized something wasn't good. And that lack of that being good was his helpmate, his wife. And so when we really, especially as believers, I'm amazed at the number of believers, Christians, who basically are just as negative about marriage as the world is. And it's a design that God gave to make our lives better, to help our lives. And so, and women, we were designed for a relationship. So when women say, I don't need a man, well, I mean, that's a true statement, but it's not a complete statement, because you become your best, highest self of potential wise when you are added to something that you're designed to help as a helpmate, as a wife. So I just find it so interesting that we really come to this place as believers I mean, the world is going to be the world. So that's just what that's going to be. But when, as believers, we come to a place where we don't even understand the power of relationship, we don't understand the power of marriage, we don't understand the power of commitment. There's a power that comes with commitment. And the Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. So that means God is and obtains favor. So that means God actually looks at his son and says, you chose my daughter. Now I'm going to give you favor. So I just, I love this conversation about how do we end peaceably. And just a personal share, that's always my goal. If I recognize something is not going the direction that I know I desire for it to go, because I think that's important. I think sometimes as women, we kind of numb our desire down because we want to make sure that a person sticks around. But if it's not what you want, and if they're sticking around for something you don't want, then at some point it's going to end anyway. So I just think communication is very important. However, I think what you said was very important in terms of, just making sure that the door stays open so that we can understand, what does God want? Ultimately, that's the question. What does God want? Who does God want to be Prophet Ralph's wife? That's important, whether it's the last or one that's coming. So that's very good stuff. Do you want to add anything? I know I said a lot.
I think also, when it comes to, because we all in stages of where we grow mentally and spiritually. I think when it comes to me, is learning myself, becoming whole. A lot of people don't understand that in the beginning it was God and Adam. People say the first relationship in the Bible was Adam and Eve. It was Adam and God,
Yeah.
and he had to become whole. He had to become, God gave him responsibilities. God gave him tools and taught him things. So when the woman came, he was already ready. He was 100% ready because the Father had taught him and showed him. I think when it comes to relationships, and individually, a lot of people don't want to get into that place where they become whole. They like to bring in 50%, 60%, and then when the relationship don't go right, then they leave with 40%, but you only came in with 60%. So you might took them 20%, but imagine if you would have been whole, you would have left whole, because once you come in whole something, you don't let nobody chip and take off of you. They got to get all of your none. So I think that when the dynamics of relationship, when people go into it, they go into looking for a husband. They go
Mm.
to look for my soulmate when they need to be going in there looking for a friend, a soul friend, a soul, like really, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, you still have not a soulmate, but a soul friend, someone that's still there and vital. And when you go forward, people say, well, when you go to the next relationship, you think that your the new woman gonna respect you still talking to the old woman? That ain't how black people work. Those are the mindset that we put into ourselves that can't be possible. Which people all day are so just criticize people all the time for stuff that people are entitled to for themselves. So I think that we just all as people just need to just learn to love ourselves, go into a relationship whole, so that if it doesn't work, then the relationship is still intact to be friends.
Absolutely. And I think that's the goal. I mean, I feel like when you're getting it, I want to be a person who adds, no matter what the relationship is, whether it's a friendship, whether it's dating. Like, I always want to be somebody that when, what can be said about me when any relationship ends is, man, she really did add some value to my life. And I feel like if that's what comes out of it, then who I am, the work of who I am is done. I think we ought to always be looking to, how can I leave the person, if not the way I found them, better? How do I make sure that my presence added value? And I think when we start to see things from that space, when things don't work out, it's okay. We're all okay. Everybody's still intact. Everybody, and of course, you may be emotional because you're ending a relationship. That's not always easy, but it's not like you're emotional in terms of, I hate this person, I'm angry, I'm mad, all these negative emotions. And you're so right about the whole piece. And just healing. The Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And a lot of times we're asking people to give something of themselves that they have not given to themselves first. So I can't love another person properly if I haven't first loved myself. And so
Right.
sometimes we have to really just forgive people because they're only giving you what they have to give you. A lot, really
Right.
not sometimes, all the time. If they're giving you what they have, and that's it. So we're trying to force something out of somebody. Give me this, give me, and they're like, I'm trying, but I don't have it. And that's when we have to be adult enough to say, okay, I understand. I'm not going to try to force you, but let's go ahead and end this right here because it's not going to go any further. This is something I do need. This is something you cannot provide. And I respect the fact that you tried, but let's just go ahead and be friends from here on out. And I think that's a good point when you're talking about self-love. That's very important.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people don't. They a lot of people think giving love and taking love away from yourself, giving it to someone else is the way to do it. You don't take love from yourself and give it to another person. You add that love to another person. You add that person into that love, and you don't just give it to them as if you pour one glass, uh, one glass into another cup, allowing you to be less and they whole. So when you exit the relationship, you think, well, I gave him my all and now I left with nothing because you wasn't supposed to pour into him like that. You're supposed to allow the love of God to pour into you and the overflow of the love that God had poured into you off onto other people. And that's how you love. And people come into relationships not learning to love like that. And then that's when they don't want to be friends no more. You took from me, you manipulate me, you did this, I can't believe you, now I have nothing. But that ain't how you supposed to enter the relationship. You was friends in the beginning. Like they say, the Bible say that when a man die, from dust he was made of, dust he shall leave. The same thing in a relationship. Once you build a friendship, hey, and if it's not toxic, leave it that way. Maybe it can grow into a big cedar tree instead of just something that
Absolutely.
dies away.
That's so good. That's so good. And you're right. I mean, there's so many dynamics you can go to when it comes to like the whole toxicity thing. I'm of the belief system that, we really do attract who we are. And so sometimes when we start recognizing that if we are seeing a constant type of person show up with toxicity, then we probably need to check within ourselves to see where does that resonate? Where in me does this person find a place where they can even connect with me? And then when we start doing that work of, like you said, the healing piece, the getting whole piece, then the type of people that you attract, you're probably still gonna, meet people who don't fit, but at the same time, you're not dealing with the toxic. Like, I mean, that part, I can't even deal with that. It's, so I'm always amazed when people recognize, because sometimes people recognize that they're not ready for a relationship, but their lack of loving themselves makes them want to find someone who can exist. But no one can never love you more than you love yourself. It's just impossible. They can try, but because you don't love yourself, you're only going to deplete and pull from them. And eventually that's going to drain the relationship. So ultimately, anytime somebody is not in a place where they can really celebrate love, enjoy love, give into love, you give, you receive from a place of wholeness, it's at some point the relationship is probably going to end anyway. So I think that's so good that you kind of really sitting with that wholeness healing piece, because that really, in my opinion, if you're not in that place, you shouldn't even date. You should just work on getting whole, getting healed, forgiving people, releasing people, whatever work is necessary, and recognizing that it's more about relationships and what we it's more about us than we realize. We like to make it like about everybody else. They did this, my dad did that, this person did that. But after a certain age, you're the common denominator. And when you were a kid, you couldn't do anything about what happened to you. But when you get a certain age as an adult, you're the common denominator. So anytime you look up and these relationships are like this, you're still the one there. So you have to ask yourself, even though people may have done things, what in me contributes to these bad relationships? What in me attracts these bad relationships? And that's a conversation I think we need to be having on a continual basis, especially in the single space. If you're not married yet, just kind of figuring those things out. So when you do get married, you're in a marriage that you enjoy being a part of and not just you had to force somebody to give you something, so
Right.
it's stuff.
And that's where I think I'm at now, with the with relationships going forward, because I used to point a lot of fingers at my ex, and I just kind of like, you got a problem with this, you got a problem with that, and I was like the one that was perfect, But although I was the responsible one, at, at the time, but it's still something inside of me that caused that,
Hmm.
and a lot of people we're afraid to admit or don't like to admit that, hey, we played a part in it. It's things that we could have done in the relationship that allowed it to be better. So going forward, if you don't tackle that now, you're gonna have the same issues going forward in another relationship, whether it be you get back with the previous woman that you were talking to, or whether you get involved in another relationship. So you got to tackle that right then, because if you don't, then that's what's going to happen. So going forward, getting to know someone else, I realize that now, hey, I'm impatient. I'm impulsive. I know this about myself. So it's like, well, okay, how do I work on that? How do I allow myself to be patient with people who need to be patient with, and be impatient with people that you need to be? It's time and season for that.
Yeah.
So I think that now I'm getting to know myself. So regardless of if I go back, you know, or if I move forward, I'm gonna be the best man that God want me to be for whatever woman that He bring into my life.
That's very good stuff. That's very good stuff. And I mean, it takes that self-awareness. And sometimes people never get there. I mean, they will just continue and cycle after cycle after cycle. And let's just be honest. I mean, for everybody that's toxic out there, there's another toxic person willing to go into a relationship and just create a whole big mess. Everybody's not ready to heal because it's work. It's work. It's uncomfortable. You have to look at yourself. You got to be real with yourself, and that's not work that everyone wants to do. And I get it. But this is what I say. I feel like toxic people ought to attract toxic people and whole people ought to attract whole people because that's only fair. How is it fair that somebody
Right.
whole got to deal with your toxicity or mine? Like nobody wants to do that. So you need to be okay. If your man is toxic and you're toxic, be okay with that because that's just where you are. Don't go looking for some whole man to come tear him up and leave him broken, because you're lacking something. No, just get whole. Deal with your issues, deal with your stuff, deal with your childhood, because a lot of times we're really just carrying over childhood trauma, childhood wounds, stuff that we saw growing up, the lack of love that we saw, with our mothers and our fathers. And we're just building on top of that rather than recognizing that we get to make our own script. Yes, my mom made those decisions. Yes, my dad made those decisions. Did it affect me? Yes. However, I'm now going to take my own story and I'm going to write it for myself and I'm going to write what I want in it and not what I don't want. So it's
Mhm.
good stuff. You got some really good points. Really
Yeah,
good
most
points.
definitely. And there are too, when it comes to just like moving forward, getting to know someone else. You just got to really get to know that person. A lot of
Mhm.
people say, well, a month, 2 months, they think they fully know that person. They develop feelings for that person, which is okay because I mean,
Yeah,
our flesh are feelings. That's what the flesh come in the form of, sometimes, and
absolutely.
that operate outside of what God intended us to and make bad decisions. But it is okay. We got to die daily in Jesus Christ. But the thing about we just got to learn just to get to know other people and not just jump into relationships. Find out who that person is, how they think. Meet their
Yes.
mom. Look at the history of them. Uh, of their family. Is their family toxic? Their mother, their sisters, their brother, the relationships that they have. And not saying that person is toxic just because you got a toxic family, but you got to understand that wherever you going, and trying to get there, you need people, like-minded people around you to build and not tear you down, just because y'all are going in two separate places. Because their family dynamics might be toxic. Your family dynamics may be the traditional way of doing things. You come together, meaning it's a half and a whole together. So, and not saying that that's not going to work, but you have to be able to communicate with each other if you're going to move forward. But do the proper research on a person. hey, Google that person, like go deep. Don't
Yeah,
just, and stuff like that. And that way to who to give your heart to, because the Bible tells you gotta keep that thing. You gotta hold on to that thing, because you just can't give it away to anyone, because they will trick you and they will have you feeling like you don't want to live again. And
yeah,
that is false. Like really.
absolutely. Yeah, that's good stuff. And you don't know anybody after 2 months. I mean, you have to, in my opinion, you need time to see them in different phases of life, not just them showing you their representative for 2 months, but like you need to be able to see how they handle crisis, how they handle death in the family, how they handle stress, how they handle, tough times, how they handle happy times, how they handle having enough, how they handle not having enough, if that should come. So, and those things really do translate over time. I think more importantly, it's just if we are tapped into God and what God is showing us about people, and if God is saying, okay, my stamp of approval is on that person for your life, then pay attention to that. Because even though there may be things about them they're working on, that still may be who God has assigned you to. So I think it's
Right.
also very important to when we're in relationships that we're listening to the voice of God. I think it's interesting that believers want to hear the voice of God on everything except for relationships. God, what job should I take? God, where should I move? God, what car should I get? God, what church should I go to? But then you get to relationships, it's like, nope, I'm going to choose all that. Well, when did we decide that his voice wasn't a stamp of approval? And the most important thing we're going to do for the rest of our, or it should be, if you're going to get married, that should be the rest of your life. Um, and we know that people do get divorced. I mean, I'm a divorcee, so we know that happens. But the goal is never to be divorced. The goal is that we spend the rest of our lives together. So how is it that we ask God about everything when it comes to our relationships? God, let me just figure this out myself. And we wonder why we're all so broken, why we're all so hurt, why we're all so wounded, because we didn't listen. And a lot of times, even without God's voice, you have discernment. You have the Holy Spirit. So you find yourself recognizing this person is not good for you, and yet you want to keep trying. No, you're going to end up hurt. And then you want to be mad at God because you ended up in a bad relationship. But no, that was the consequence of your decision. So we've got to really,
Yeah.
that's why I said relationships are for really grown people.
Yeah. Because we as people, we try to be scientists. We try to
Right.
just do all this, and God, like, get out the way. I'm the scientist. Like, you just stick to the science. So we just got to stop trying to be scientists and trying things, and let God be the doctor and the finisher and the maker of our life, and allow that and allow ourselves to walk into people. Now, you cannot find a good man or a good woman sitting at home and not just
Right.
put our work is dead, so you have to put yourself in situations like that. But when you
Right.
meet people, allow God to do that thing. Like when people show you themselves, you gotta believe them. Take stuff at face value. If you hear barking, it's a dog. Meow, it's a cow. A cat. So like take stuff at face value. That's the stuff God be trying to teach us. And like you said, like you like to add stuff in people life. And I ask myself every day, are you Ralph? Are you an angel on assignment? And that's
Mm,
why I try in each everybody's life. I try to be an angel on assignment in everybody's life. Not try to fix no one life, but allow them to be a listening ear to them and give them advice that may be one day that allow them to take that. So it's about just being. It's about being what God created you to be, first of all. And then as you walk into God, you're gonna be able to meet people. And then when you meet people, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. And then when it don't, it's cool. Like we're saying right now, create friendships, because you create a network, business stuff down the line. You might need that person. That person might open doors for you that another person might cannot open. So that's how you keep that alive. And sometimes it don't. But that's the way God works. That's the way how he made things. And sometimes the enemy creeps in and try to change up things. But what God has for you, can't no man take away. It may take a little longer. It may, what I'm saying? It may take a little longer, but hey, if God has for you, is yours.
absolutely. And there's peace in that. There's peace in simply casting our cares on to our Father because He cares for us. There's peace in that. There's peace in knowing that I don't have all the answers, but I know someone who does. I don't know, how something can turn out, but if I listen and trust the one who does, because he knows my end in my beginning. I'm just meeting somebody. I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be like this. And God's like, nope, it's going to be like that. You know? And
Right.
so since God already knows what it's going to be like, I may as well just train my ear to really pay attention. Like you said, even sometimes just knowing, is this a business? Because it could be something where this is just business. It's not going to go into anything else deeper. And one of the things I've been teaching people, and even I practice myself, you know, when we're talking about relationships and falling in love, I don't like that term anymore. Because falling, number one, you're falling. So we know what happens when we fall. We scrape our knee, you know, we get a bruise, we get a something, somewhere we are injured. I don't want to fall anymore. I've fallen a few times. I want to be awoke. I want to be standing up in love. I want to be present in love. And I want to choose it.
Mm.
I want to, when I realize the components of what I desire for the rest of my life as a mate is there, then I want to choose love. And because we can choose what we love. We don't have to just, you know, all these fluffy feelings I'm gonna give into. No, you can choose it. So when all the components are there that fit where I'm going in my life, then I'm gonna choose to release my love. Not that I won't love you on the surface, you know, I love everybody type love. When I'm talking about romantic, give my heart to somebody, this time I'm gonna choose who I give it to. And I think that's the
Mm.
safe, that's the responsible place. But that's also how we guard our hearts, because we choose.
Right. And ooh, that what you said, that's resurrected. And please, I hope that everybody heard what you just said. That was resurrecting all day, like really, you know, and that's how it is. Like I drop the mic on that last comment, you know, for real, because that's exactly what it's like, you know. But I love relationships. God love relationships. That's why He created them, and that's why the Canaanite and the children of Israel got into it, and the Pharaoh, the people from Egypt. That's why everybody get into it. Everybody make up, break up. It's all in the dynamics of relationships, and God is the foundation of all relationships, whether it be good or bad, business or however it is. And they it's good and awesome how God created this world. This
Yeah,
world is amazing how the sun comes and sun sets. But to me, ain't nothing like the dynamics of a relationship where God created dynamics of a relationship, because even though the sun set and it rains and stuff like that stuff keeps us alive. But relationships keeps us alive. We have to have those. We have to have people that we network. We have to have people that we not falling in love with, as you said, but present in love, walking in love, you know, walking into that love. And that's what keeps not America, but this world great. You know, it keeps that. And we need relationships just as we need the church, just as much as we need God, just as much as we need the concept of loving our neighbor like we loved ourselves. We need those relationships, and that's what it's all about. And I thank God for relationships as more than just as the same as I thank God for being here today, because it keeps going on. It replenishes. Like as far as birth, like my mama have a child, she had me, I have kids, kids that have kids. It's replenished under the earth, but can none of that all be done without the dynamics of the relationship?
absolutely. You are so right about it. I mean, and it's important to God. You know, my spiritual father, he made a point today. We were talking about relationships, just this topic, and he was just saying marriage is so important to God that right now in heaven, Jesus, the Bible says that Jesus is at the right hand of the Father, but the church is his bride. So the concept of marriage is so important that even Jesus is married the church. That's how important that concept is. And so I believe as believers, we have to take back this mentality that marriage is bad, relationships are bad, love is bad. We've got to really get in alignment with what heaven is saying. And I believe a lot of times people are missing out on key components in their life because they have not accepted the assignment of marriage. They have not accepted the assignment to love. And we've just taken all the world's way of thinking and we're getting the world's results, which is why families are broken. Our children are growing up in homes where they're not seeing what it looks like to have a healthy relationship. So I don't have anything else to share tonight, Prophet Ralph. I know we said we'll probably do 30 minutes tonight. Do you have anything else that you want to share before we close tonight?
Just basically The whole topic was, can we move forward as friends after the relationship? I think that we can. I think that is very important, especially if it's not toxic. I think that all relationships are not meant to work,
That's
but
right.
learn from and to grow from, to be better and better in each relationship and each people and each person you meet in your life and bring into your life. You be a better friend, you be a better son, you be a better daughter, you be a better mother with each encounter. So I think that with that being said, that we should create healthy relationships. And if it's not healthy, then sometimes we have to move on. But if it can be saved, try to save it, because I'm a living witness. Like I said, I was engaged, but it didn't work out. But still a wonderful woman, still very played a vital part of my life. And who knows? We don't go on dates. We don't do things like that anymore. But we still talk and stuff like that. But I'm getting to know myself. She getting to know herself, and who knows? We might come back together, or I might meet another beautiful woman that that God has for me to be with, and we do what God wants us to do. But those are seasons, and I understand that. I'm not mad at that. I embrace that because it's all a part of my will. So I would like for everyone that's on this show, this broadcast today, to know that, hey, it's okay. We fall, we get back up. Righteous man falls 7 times, and we move forward. But the key thing is to keep moving forward. Don't sit down. You got to get on up.
That's good stuff. Very good stuff. And I agree with you that, after a breakup, you definitely can still have a friendship. I was married 17 years, and my ex-husband and I, we're definitely still friends. I mean, we have children we're raising to, co-parenting. So you definitely can do but like, again, and I always say this, relationships are for very mature people. So when you have that mindset, you understand when things do end, it's not the end of the world. Not being married is not the end of the world. Not, being single is not the end of the world. These are great spaces, but knowing how to grow, navigate the spaces, and even being responsible in how we treat people. But that we're sowing seeds on how we treat people, so being responsible with that as well. So, very great point. I am definitely in agreement that we can absolutely still be friends after a breakup. So I think that's all I have for tonight. And I don't know how you want to end or close or anything, but thank you all
Hey,
for having me again. I'm so honored to be back as always, and look forward to being with you all again.
all
Good night,
love, all love.
good night, everybody. And I think somebody's going to come close it.